Vengeance is the most offensive oath you can take as a paladin in Baldur's Gate 3. They are the living example of saying might makes right and that the best defense is offense. That isn't to say that they can't defend. Being a paladin inherently makes them great at shrugging off damage in heavy armor and a shield if you so choose. They can also combine their great martial prowess with tanking for your group if you combine some useful feats together, which we will go into later. They walk a thin line between delivering justice and zealotry, but they are not oathbreakers. Quite the opposite, in fact. The tenets of vengeance are perhaps the most devout of them all. Vengeance paladins have some powerful abilities that make them shine in 1v1 combat and chase their foes down with unrelenting conviction. If you want to know the basics of the paladin and other classes, check out my introduction to classes video, but now let us focus on this subclass, its mechanics and flavor. Let's start with the tenets of vengeance. The tenets of the Oath of Vengeance are simple but effective. Fight the greater evil. Faced with a choice of fighting my sworn foes or combating a lesser evil, I choose the greater evil. No mercy for the wicked. Ordinary foes might win my mercy, but my sworn enemies will not. By any means necessary. My qualms can't get in the way of exterminating my foes.
This entire city must be purged. What?
Restitution. If my foes wreak ruin to the world, it is because I failed to stop them. I must help those harmed by their misdeeds. Vengeance is not sworn lightly. Once a paladin has sworn vengeance upon an enemy, they will stop at nothing to make sure that justice is delivered. A very Machiavellian approach, as you can see. To abide to your oath, you have to think of the bigger picture and pursue foes even if it takes you to the end of the earth.
I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth if I have to. Do you hear me? To the ends of the earth!
Mechanics. The bonus spells Vengeance Paladins get are: on level 3 we get Bane and Hunter's Mark, on level 5 we get Hold Person and Misty Step, and on level 9 we will get Haste and Protection from Energy. The standouts here are Hunter's Mark, which is great in combination with your Oath of Enmity, which we will cover later, and Misty Step is very handy to move around the battlefield. Hold Person is a very strong spell, but as a paladin we won't have as good of a spell DC to cast it reliably. So it is best to give those high DC spells to full casters like your wizards and clerics. Haste is one of the best, if not the best, buff in the game, but you do get it pretty late as a paladin on level 9. Same goes for Protection from Energy, which could be very useful in certain situations, but again you do get it pretty late. Also, you will most likely use your spell slots on smites anyway, so you don't need to focus on those buffs necessarily. And now one of the selling points of the Vengeance Paladin, our Channel Divinity. We have two abilities here available to us. First one is Abjure Enemy. As an action, you choose one creature within 60 feet of you that you can see. That creature must make a Wisdom saving throw unless it is immune to being frightened. Fiends and Undead have disadvantage on this saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is frightened for 1 minute or until it takes any damage. While frightened, the creature's speed is 0 and it cannot benefit from any bonus to its speed. On a successful save, the creature's speed is halved for 1 minute or until the creature takes any damage. A decent effect if your foe isn't immune to the frightened condition, but it most often pales in comparison to the second choice, which is, as a bonus action you can utter a vow of enmity against a creature you can see within 10 feet of you. You gain advantage on attack rolls against that creature for 1 minute or until it drops to 0 hit points or falls unconscious. What that means is that for 10 rounds you've got advantage on all your attacks. So not only do you guarantee way more hits on the enemy, you are essentially doubling your critical strike chance and dishing out even more damage with Divine Smites, which is your bread and butter ability as a paladin. Then on level 7 we get Relentless Avenger. When you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, you can move up to half your speed immediately after the attack and as a part of the same reaction. This movement does not provoke attacks of opportunity. You can either chase down an enemy that's trying to flee, or you will be able to tail your target that much easier. Now if you decide to use spears or any other type of polearms, taking the Polearm Master feat makes you even better at this. Then if you add the Sentinel feat on top of it, pretty much nothing will be able to escape from you, and you will also do more damage to escaping or distracted enemies that decide to not focus on you. Both feats are confirmed to be in the full release of Baldur's Gate 3, which is great. Another feat that is worthy of consideration is the Great Weapon Master, which paired with our advantage that Vow of Enmity provides, it can offset the -5 penalties significantly, giving us insane damage potential, especially early in the game. The additional attack we get after critically striking or killing an enemy is also great. And remember that you can turn off the passive feature of -5 to hit +10 to damage anytime, so you can disable it when facing a high armor class opponent. A Vengeance Paladin focuses himself on stacking monstrous attacks against a singular opponent, so any items, feats and passives center around hitting harder and more often is great for us. Our spell list helps us with mobility and chasing our targets down, so anything boosting that even further is also great. When it comes to choosing skills, it's not much different from your standard Paladin. Persuasion if you want a more diplomatic approach, Intimidation will also work. Deception though is risky, as there might be conversations that infringe on you breaking your oath, as Vengeance Paladins are more straightforward and want to get to the point about distributing justice, preferably honestly. Perception is always great to have, especially since not many companions have it, so it's a good pick unless you plan to respect your companion. You will most likely be good at athletics if you focus on strength and charisma, unless we plan on getting 3 levels for Pact of the Blade, but on that we're gonna talk later. Another great thing about the Vengeance Paladin is that it stays strong across all levels. There is no real moment where you will feel weak, especially in Baldur's Gate 3 where you take your oath on level 1, giving you access to Vow of Enmity right away. In the role-playing aspect, while the subclass might feel a bit of a trope for some, and I know it is getting more popular recently, especially after the Dark Urge was announced, it does make for a badass spine for a character, balancing the concept of law and justice while often being in the grey area for the greater good. Even if it is a bit overplayed, I can't say I blame its popularity. Even I can't wait to try it out, as I always loved playing paladins in D&D and other video games for as long as I can remember, so don't let anyone shame you for picking it. It is a popular choice for a reason, and we know how many potential outcomes Baldur's Gate 3 will have, and I'm sure we will share different stories even within the same subclass. Now let's talk about some multiclass choices. We will not discuss only dipping into the Paladin class here, as this is the guide for the Vengeance subclass, so we will consider choices that get us at least 5 Paladin levels or more, preferably 6 or 7 for that improved aura and Relentless Avenger. First choice that we will consider, especially if you want to walk that thin line of grey, is the Warlock, specifically Pact of the Blade, which will make our charisma stat our ability score for almost everything, as it will change our hit and damage modifier from strength to charisma. You will also get 2 rechargeable spell slots on short rests, meaning more smite slots, and not to mention Agonizing Eldritch Blast invocation, which gives us a strong ranged options added to our arsenal, something we were lacking before. The question becomes when to take the Warlock levels, and I see 2 paths here. You either take the Warlock levels after the second Paladin level, which enables smites, meaning by the end of Act 1 you will be relying solely on charisma and have some additional spell slots, but you will delay your level 3 spells and most importantly your second attack. That's why I would rather stick to Paladin till level 6 for improved aura, or maybe even level 7 for the Relentless Avenger, level 3 spells and the extra attack, and then get 3 levels of Warlock. If you don't care for the Pact of the Blade and want to keep using strength or dexterity as your damage and hit modifier, you could just pick up 2 Warlock levels for improved Eldritch Blast and another useful invocation like improved Dark Vision. Another great multiclass option is the Fighter, specifically Champion, as 3 levels of Fighter will enable this subclass and make our smites and weapon damage even more deadly with more crits thanks to improved critical, which might be simple but extremely effective. Not to mention getting the amazing action surge on level 2 and an additional heal from Second Wind from level 1. Oh, and another fighting style. What's not to love? Our third and final option for today is the infamous Sorkadin or Sorsadin, I never know which one to spell. But because this is a guide focusing mostly on the Paladin, I will only discuss the variants that take the 6 or 7 levels of the Paladin and the rest in Sorcerer, which is a pretty common split and works great anyway. Usually, you will start with 6 levels of the Paladin for extra attack on level 5 and improved aura on level 6, and then transition into the Sorcerer to start picking up spell slots and arcane spells to round out your arsenal. Not to mention sorcery points for even more smites. It will also give us access to the very powerful meta magic, especially Quicken Spell from the Sorcerer. Quicken Spell allows you to spend 2 sorcery points to cast a spell as a bonus action rather than an action. And since there is no limit in Baldur's Gate 3 on how many spells you can cast per round, it means you can throw out a couple smites per turn, or maybe do a melee attack and then follow up with a powerful spell. Or buff yourself with something powerful and then go all out on your melee attacks and smites. For arcane spells, just focus on powerful buffs on yourself, mostly like Mirror Image, and leave the blasting and debuffing to your full spellcasters. You can also consider spells like Dispel Magic or Silence for more of an Inquisitor feel. Yes, you miss out on 1 ability score improvement with this build, but considering how much you are gaining in return, I don't see it as a big disadvantage. You could also take 1 level of Sorcerer early for picking up the Shield spell, which will greatly boost our defenses, but delay our extra attack a little bit. From a mechanical standpoint, I recommend the White Draconic Bloodline for Armor of Agathis, boosting our defenses even further. You want to start out as a Paladin though, to make sure we have heavy armor proficiency, as at least in tabletop you don't get heavy armor proficiency if you multiclass into a martial class after starting out as a spellcaster. You can also consider the 7-5 split, meaning 7 into Paladin and then taking the Sorcerer, which will still enable at the very least the level 3 spells from the Sorcerer, or higher depending on how Larian will implement the multiclassing feature of spellcasters. So the main reason to get to Paladin 7 is for that Relentless Avenger feature, which can be crucial especially if you want to combine the Sentinel and Polearm Master feats. And that concludes our Vengeance Paladin build guide. Let me know in the comments what you thought of it, was it helpful and did I do it justice? Thank you very much for watching, and consider subscribing if you enjoy my content, it helps out the channel immensely. Also, check out my live streams at Twitch TV Kainra, where we'll be playing Baldur's Gate 3 when it comes out all the time, discovering everything about the game together. I can't wait to see you there and on my next video very soon.